Ginger. Good morning. I'm doing well, and you?
Yeah, I bet I'm doing better than you are. You know why?
Why?
I hear you're going to Haiti.
I am going to Haiti, but then how come you're doing better than I am?
Well, because I'm not working as hard to get ready. How much stuff are you taking?
Well, I have received a lot of generous donations, and
Yeah.
so they gave me a list of like a wish list, and I am doing my hardest to fulfill all of those things on the list. My biggest issue will be how much I can. I'm really having to push the 50-pound limit, so I'm decided
Yeah.
to take a personal item just for myself, so I get another carry-on. But as much as I possibly can haul through the airport is the answer.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Haiti at the end of the podcast, but anybody who needs to know more about Denise, she packs and unpacks about 10 times to get everything in.
Yes, it's true. I do. You have to get the little extra suture pack in this case, and they're really
Yeah.
small, but I'm going to be slipping in anything I possibly can. Who needs clothes when you're going
Who
somewhere?
needs
You just need
clothes? That's
supplies for
right.
where you're going.
Exactly. Well, Denise, as our podcast goes and our listeners are getting more familiar with, we're about at the Stump the Denise new news section. Are you
Ah,
ready?
she tries every time, but sometimes I actually know the news.
Sometimes I
So
know. And
try. Go ahead, Ginger.
this is going to sound familiar, but my numbers girl here, I'm going to give you the numbers. Are you ready?
I am. I am.
This was published in an open access journal from Archives of Obstetrics and Gynecology, actually a journal I haven't spent a lot of time in, 2 days ago. Now we know there's a workforce shortage, right? And ACOG had done a series of workforce data analysis several years ago, state by state. And ACNM has done some work in this area too, but this is a fascinating study looking at the OBGYN workforce in the United States, and this is what they found. No surprise. Adding to the previous literature highlighting the growing concern about the adequacy of the OB workforce from 2025 to 2037. So we're forecasting, forward 11, not much, 11 years. The demand is projected to increase 52, I'm going to round these out, 52,000 FTEs, a 2.7% increase, while the supply of OBs is projected to decrease 49,000,
Wow.
a
Wow.
10.3% decrease. As a result, the workforce adequacy is projected to decrease over the study period from 93 to 81%. Addressing the imbalance will require strategic planning. So the article is fascinating to read because they talk about the specific areas where the workforce shortage will be amplified. Of course, we know rural, semi-rural. They also isolate states, Iowa, Arizona, Utah, maybe. Um,
Mm,
but then they even go on to talk about how this impacts outcomes.
of
Uh,
course, right?
yeah, and how it's going to impact marginalized populations more than anybody else.
Of course. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to get that link from you because I am working on a project that
I
kind of
know.
addresses that in the
I
state of
I thought
Wisconsin.
I thought
So
about you.
I
Yeah.
bet you did.
And
So
you know what, Denise? They talk
yeah.
about maybe five recommendations for action, policy, funding, and guess what? I'm going to
What?
read
Like
it
educating
further.
midwives?
Further training and integration of nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives, and physician assistants to provide the care needed in the workforce deficiency areas.
You know what's interesting? Our guest today just posted something about that recently. Um,
Ah,
and so that might come up in the conversation a little bit, but it wasn't intended to be the focus. But that's right. For good outcomes, what better than to train those that can help with those outcomes, but midwives.
yeah, yeah.
So
So,
that's very timely news, Ginger. I am
yeah,
definitely needing that reference, and that leads us to welcoming our guest for the day,
how
Emily Portis.
exciting.
Welcome.
Hi,
I
thank
Hi,
y'all for
I
having
can
Emily.
me.
say that I think I've known Emily over the past year and a half, perhaps. Just kind of talking with Emily, working with through Grow Midwives. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I'm very honored and excited to talk to you today because I admire your tenacity in, making it happen to return back to the workforce when you took a little leave. So I will let you tell us more about yourself if you can. And a question that we often start out with is, why did you become a midwife? And then later on, you can tell us why you wanted to come back to the practice area. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I am so honored to be here on the Possibilist Midwives. So I probably got my interest in birth when I was 5 because my cat had kittens in my garage and I witnessed it and it was amazing. And so I think my mom probably knew at that moment that I was destined for something healthcare related and not surprised by my love for birth and women's care or individuals' care too. I use the term women generally, but I will use
Yes.
whatever somebody's preferred pronoun is. And both of my grandmothers were nurses, so it
Uh,
certainly was in my family to,
yeah.
be a nurse. And I went to nursing school. I really wanted to be a vet when I was,
Mm,
choosing
Yeah.
a career, and I fortunately took a health science class in high school, and my teacher was like, "You need to be a nurse." And so she
mm,
really influenced me in my little high school senior class to go to nursing school. And I did the next best thing, which was babies, because they are like animals. So they're small, you tell them it's okay, and they don't really talk back and they don't have
Oh,
names. So
yeah.
you can, kind of just call them baby. And it was great. And I really came to midwifery through the birth canal. I started with
Mm,
babies in the NICU. I worked on a unit where we began doing our admissions in the labor suite,
uh,
and I facilitated that. I was not as quick of an adopter for couplet care. I really struggled with
mm,
understanding, the benefit of that. But one of my directors of women's services while I was in school was able to really shine the light on
yeah.
caring for the couplet as one and educated me and took time to explain that, the benefit to that for me. And so I became more interested in labor and delivery after the birth of my second child. I had an unmedicated birth and
Mm,
it was wild. And I just felt like I wanted to be there to support people and things I wanted to tell them, I needed to tell them before they got to the nursery. So I came
yeah.
to labor and delivery. And then I did labor and delivery. I did a great internship at a large hospital in Dallas. And I was there for 12 years. And I still just always felt called to say something to patients before they got to me. I had things I needed to tell them before they got to me. And so I had never worked with a midwife. When I applied to my program, they were like, well, who do you know that's a
Right.
midwife? And I said,
Right.
0 people. I've never actually met a midwife before, but I know I want to be one.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
they kind of were amused at that on my application, but that's how I really got here. And I feel so lucky that I'm able to care for individuals across the lifespan. So
Yeah.
from teenagers, where you're really teaching and developing understanding of their body, and obviously pregnancy is still my favorite, and it's the pinnacle for me of what I get to do on a daily basis. But I'm also, as a middle-aged woman, I'm discovering the menopause management and the
Yeah.
the aspects of caring for people after their childbearing years. So that's
Yeah.
how I got here.
So, can you share with us a little bit about kind of your career trajectory and, where you put a pause in that on that trajectory and how you came back to that? And
Sure.
also, I got to throw in why, always why.
Yeah, for sure. So, and you actually, I'm kind of a double person, right? You hit the nail on the head. One of the things is it took a long time for me to get a job after I graduated from
Mm,
Mm,
from midwifery school. I one of my regrets, which is not huge, but I didn't fill out my tuition reimbursement that last semester because I was afraid that I would like get the money and I would spend it, and then I would get my midwife job and I would like have to pay that tuition reimbursement back because I didn't honor my working for a
Yeah.
year. I wound up actually working for like 1 year and 2 weeks after.
Oh,
So
wow.
out there listening, please fill out your tuition reimbursement and put it in savings or something because I really could have utilized that benefit that I didn't use. And so it took a little bit to get my first job. I was pregnant, and I think that influenced, hiring
Mm.
and my
Yeah.
willingness to hire, and also employers just being unsure about me. But then the process took long. I applied for the job that I first took in February of 18, and I started in September of 18. And so
Yeah.
I
Wow.
was really surprised by that too, that, just the process was a little longer than I was expecting. I never had a nursing job
Right.
that took a process like that.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I had just already had my baby by the time I applied for the job, and unexpectedly, my ex-husband passed away and had older children too. And
Mhm.
so I took that job. I had this new baby. I really loved it. In my personal life, my current husband's career really took off. So he was having career demands that
Yeah.
at the time, even that I didn't have to factor that in for my personal family. And so my decision ultimately to step away from my midwifery role was simply related to I truly felt like I had demands that needed my attention.
Yeah.
My older kids were both graduating from high school, and with the death of their father, I felt a burden of responsibility
Yeah.
to devote my attention to them in a way that my career was not allowing me to do. And so I
Yeah.
had to really reflect on that. And I think that highlights the mindfulness
Yes.
of this job, where had I just grinded and just stayed in that role, which I have done before. I worked all through nursing school, all through graduate
Yeah.
school. I think it would have really come at a detriment to myself, to my family, and to
Mm.
my patients who I
Yeah.
serve. And
Well, Emily,
yeah,
how can you, this is a really important conversation because
sure.
sometimes it's people just don't feel safe where they're at, or they don't like where they're at, or they
Sure.
can't be where they're at. And yet that decision making you went through to just say, I've got to stop. How much time did that take you to figure out?
I will say I'm a very calculating person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I laughed when you said in your first episode that some things happened just you know, I'm blanking on the word. Things happen sometimes in a way that you don't necessarily expect. So
Yeah.
that factored into this too. I
Yeah.
would say I probably took about 3 weeks.
It was
Um,
quick.
it was quick.
Only. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something that also once I kind of decided, and my
Yeah.
husband influenced my decision too. Certainly, it
Sure.
was familial and a
Sure.
spousal conversation. But I'm not gonna like take the Band-Aid off carefully. I'm gonna just rip it
Yeah.
off once
Yeah.
I decide. Now, I did give 3 months notice, so
Yeah.
it's not like I abruptly left my role. I
Yeah.
certainly allowed plenty of time, and
Yeah.
you know, really tried to give that
Yeah.
gift back because I had been given so much
Yeah.
in my role and the
Right.
investment in me. And um
Yeah.
but that was hard. Waiting through patience, knowing for 3 months that
Yes.
you're leaving is
Yes.
also really hard.
It
It's
is
a
very
lot
hard.
of tears.
It's very hard. I've
Yeah.
been there too.
Yeah. So but like I said, I'm pretty calculating, and once I really like wrote down, or worked through like what am I doing? What are the benefits? It really made a big difference. Also, no one told me 4 kids is a lot of kids, so I had my fourth child,
Yeah.
and I just it was a lot. It's a lot of kids.
Yes. I hear you.
You really were doing a nice inventory of your wants and needs that we often refer to.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And
Yes.
that was a huge benefit when I decided, I mean, I had never decided I wasn't going to go back. that wasn't a question. And I was very explicit with my spouse that, I am designed to work. I am called to do
Yeah.
this.
Right.
For me, the calling is spiritual. It is something between me and what I call God, and
Yeah.
I have to do this. I am compulsed and called to do
Yeah.
this. So it was never a I'm walking away and saying goodbye. It's
Yeah.
just like I need a pause.
Yes.
And so I really approached it that way, and that's kind of how I used it.
So driven, called, and what were the steps that you took then to re-enter? What did you
So
need to do?
serendipitous is the word. It came to me. I knew it
There
would be
you
there.
go.
So my most serendipitous moment was when I kind of realized that, okay, I have worked my 400, I was in Texas, so my
Yeah.
my requirements were like 400 hours of work.
Yeah.
So then I really started calculating like, okay, I can take off, this much time. I renewed my license in September. So then if I worked for 12 weeks, I would have like my 400 hours so that in
Mm,
2 years I could renew my license.
Yeah.
And then I would still have 2 more years before I had to get that additional 400 hours. So I kind of had a buffer.
Yeah.
Now, what I didn't factor in is that my husband's company would sell to a company in Houston, and we were faced with moving anyway. And so there's always the part where you're just like, well,
Life happens.
I couldn't have put that on my bingo card.
Yeah.
And then that's where we really entered these conversations, and that, okay, are we going to move to Houston with your employer, and I'm going to go back to work, which I have to do by
Yeah.
March of 2024 or 2025 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
25, I guess. I have to do this by this day because of my licensing requirements, and I just am going to be worried about it, and I have worked way too hard to like lose any of this. And that's when it was like, oh, by the way, we're gonna not go to Houston and stay
Yeah.
with his employer. We're gonna move to Minnesota, and
Yeah.
like, no big
wow.
deal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I also got to learn about licensure in a different state.
Yeah.
I always knew that Texas was a compact state, and I always was excited about that and proud of that. And I had looked at that a long time ago, and I had a kid that had surgery, and we were in Philadelphia, and they were not a compact state. So I was trying to figure out, like, if I had to live here and work here, what would I do?
Right.
But I didn't know that that didn't apply to your APRN license. I had learned all these
Mm,
Yeah.
things that applies to your nursing license, not your APRN license. Um, I was completely paranoid I was going to have to take like a test, you know, and
right.
so
Yeah.
so it was really like refreshing that I didn't have to do that, but I still had to, get transcripts and like find all of these
Yeah.
things that were kind
Yeah.
of, like, oh,
Incredible.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Things that I did on the break, though, I mean, I really tried to stay involved and active.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In Texas, ACNM affiliate are it's a little more scattered because
Yeah.
Texas is so large and you
Yeah.
have kind of
Yeah.
regions. So I feel like I wasn't as able, and I had a small baby, so I just wasn't at a place where I
Yeah.
could plug in as well. When I came to Minnesota, need, precedes, I guess, all other things. And
Yes.
I worked in Dallas for 20 years. So at any moment, you can ask me virtually any nurse at any DFW hospital, and I can find someone who knows
Yeah.
them. I mean, in labor and delivery
Yeah.
circles, certainly not
Yeah.
like the
Sure.
ER ICU, but like, I have just an interweb there of connectedness. And so removing myself from that protection coming
Yeah.
here really required that I be plugged in and active.
So, Emily, you're sharing what I would call vulnerabilities we hear from a lot of our clients. So you're
Mhm.
being removed from your place of familiarity and security. You're
Comfort.
going, yeah, comfort. You're going to a new state. you're re-entering after a lapse of time.
Right, which
And
was in my mind going to be 2 years, and
how
instead of
long was that?
three, yeah, it was a little over three.
It was a little over 3 years. And so, can you help our listeners understand maybe how you prepared to go forward in job interviews and to be able to tell your story of how you could could defend your competencies while having a lapse of time, because a lot of hospitals are creating rules that are very difficult to jump through.
Sure.
Right.
So the first thing I did was I plugged in with my professors
Hmm.
from graduate school. So Becky Burpo was my program director at the time. She and I did some work with another professor, Tasha, and she and I, or all three of us, we worked on a project about peripartum cardiomyopathy. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't published, but it was a really great process of learning to write a journal article and what all goes into that. So I was staying very research oriented and information oriented. Our project was picked up for the ACNM conference, but I was not able to go present. That was the year it was in Orlando,
Yeah.
and I wasn't able to go that year. And so my my partner Tasha, she presented for us, and it was really great. But I still was staying kind of plugged in that way. Then I taught for the Baby Academy, and so I
Yeah.
was they did a really great job of providing super updated information. So I
Yeah.
felt like the
Yeah.
information that I was reviewing was fresh.
Yeah.
And then I contacted Grow Midwives. And actually, Ginger, I contacted you very shortly after I left, or right before I left my role. And you and I had a like 15-minute consult, of just like, hey, I don't know what I want to do when I
Yeah.
go back. And, you were like, yeah, you don't know what you want to do. You don't know
Yeah.
what you want to do. So call me back when you know what you want to do. And, it was really a great opportunity to just kind of be told that like, it's okay, you're in a space where you don't know what to do. So you don't have to make a decision today, but like you do have to make a decision before I can help you know what
Right.
to do. And so then when I was ready to come back, I contacted y'all again, and I utilized the consulting service to just prep me for interviews. I learned things when I left my job
Yeah.
that I wish that I had known better on the front end. And I'm sure somebody told me somewhere along the way, but I was just drinking from the fire hose, and
Yeah. Very
that's
common. I mean, that's Denise, that's what we see all the time.
All the time. All
and
the time.
so
Yeah.
it was so yeah, Denise is who I hooked up with, and so then
Yeah.
it was a couple of face to face, or Zoom to Zoom
Yeah.
meetings. And I think the biggest help was the list that y'all had me, like the homework.
Yeah.
Was that was just phenomenal. And I've used that tool now in other aspects of my life too. The, wants and needs, and
Yeah.
then like financial and
Yeah.
personal and professional, and really dividing that out helped me be mindful of what was
Yeah.
most
Yes.
important.
Was there anything that you encountered kind of in the interview processes with that you can share that you maybe weren't ready for, or that you felt that you wowed them on the other side that really was opened a door for you to be then hired back?
So I think the part that was hardest for me in the interview was the waiting. So you talk
Yeah.
to the recruiter, and then the recruiter doesn't really know anything, and then
Right.
they're like, well, I don't know, and then they just kind of keep pushing you off. Being told no, like,
Yeah.
still hurts, even if I mean, I'm very grateful for where I've landed. I don't have any qualm about that. That definitely feels bad, when you're like,
Yeah.
well, that wasn't the outcome that I was hoping for. Um, I think, the hospital situation where again they had an expectation of 10 births in the last 12 months or 20 births in the last 24 months. And, I
Yeah.
it was very frustrating to
Yeah.
like, I don't have that, but like,
Right.
here's what I do have. And
Right.
and you could tell that whoever I was talking to was like filling out a form. They were just trying
Yes.
to check a
Hmm.
box.
Exactly.
And then like their gears were like, it's like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have anybody that I've worked with in the last 12 months because I have not worked in the last 12 months. So
Right.
then they would send the little eval forms to like my previous colleagues,
Yeah.
and it would be like, in the last 12 months, have you
Right.
seen this person?
Right.
That's
And they're
right.
like, well, I don't really want to say yes because
Haven't seen
I
her.
I
haven't.
haven't seen you do that in the last 12 months. And
Yeah.
so, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I appreciate that my colleague is willing to be honest about that. Like,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
colleague you
But
want me
that's a real challenge. I mean,
to.
how you battle the organizational check marks
Mhm.
and at
Hmm.
the same time, Emily, convince them of your leverage, right? If
Yeah.
I were talking to you as a recruiter, I'm going, "Oh my gosh, all this L&D experience, high volume population, diverse
Yep.
population, a midwife for X number of years." Experienced midwives are hard to find right now.
They
Sure.
are hard to
Very
find.
hard to find.
Sure. And I think that really highlighting my skills, making sure my resume was
Yes.
strong, and
Yes.
having not midwives look at it.
Hmm.
My husband is a
Yes.
geologist, so he doesn't know what, I mean, now he knows what a midwife does, but he doesn't know what a midwife does.
Yeah.
And so when he looks at my resume, he can understand, oh, this plugs into this, and this all
Yeah.
flows. Where I feel like a hospital staff member or, a recruiter, they can see that if they maybe don't always understand the nuance of our
Yeah.
role.
I think that's a very, very good point to make, because those who do receive our applications don't have any clue usually.
Right.
And it's like it's really important for them to see that there is a person behind them and they have all this experience. So,
And talking to like a 24-year-old. That's
oh,
Yeah. There you go.
because they are being taught in school these code words that AI resume readers
Yes.
are
Yes.
picking up on, that
Yes.
I'm a dinosaur. I do not know these things.
Yeah.
And I still don't even know what word it was that, in my application that something somewhere picked up
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So talking to multiple generations,
Yeah.
utilizing, I always think of the ACNM logo as, like, I don't know, I think of it as midwives, and it's the future and the present and the past, and we're all linked
Yeah.
together. And so I really tried to use that even in my own,
Yeah.
return to work, that what's changed. I also, y'all, 3 years, these people that are birthing are now my children's age. Like, that is
Yeah.
a very strange phenomenon, that like when I
Yes.
left, I was a dinosaur having a baby, and that's okay. But then when I came back, like, all of the people are so much younger. That
Yeah.
was a very
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
experience, to just be like, I've taken care of 25-year-olds for 25 years. I don't understand how now y'all are all babies.
Oh man, Emily, I can relate. I had my fourth son when I was 40,
I was 41.
and was in a full scope practice. Denise, you were there.
I was
Uh,
there.
so yeah, that's profound. Another thing, Denise, I heard Emily, I think I picked up on was the fact that your relocation was a part of your husband's transfer to Minnesota, right? So you were in a restricted zone of where you could buy a home and get to work and fulfill his job requirements as well. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you went through knowing that you had a geographic area that had to fit?
So, we live in the metro, so it's certainly and my perspective as a Texan in Minnesota versus a Minnesotan,
Yeah.
if I have to drive 45 minutes, that is no sweat to me. Now, of course, I am terrified of driving 45 minutes on a snowy day because I've never driven in snow
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah.
I've had some learning curves that way.
Yeah.
But certainly the culture here, if you have to drive 45 minutes, I mean, you're packing an overnight bag in this
Oh
area.
my gosh.
So, it's a different culture and landscape. So I certainly was willing to work further, but then you have call
Yeah.
requirements. In Texas, we often had a 30-minute,
Yeah.
time we had to
Right.
be present at the bedside. And so I definitely was limited in that aspect, but I would just have to take a role where either I could stay for 24 hours if I'm
Yeah.
on call, and if I'm in a clinic, I have to be willing to drive further. And because that was my cultural norm in Texas, I was
Yeah.
okay with that. But I've lucked into where now I'm kind of sad because I only have like an 11-minute commute and I can't even listen to a whole episode of anything. And again, my whole life I've always driven
Oh,
45
yeah.
minutes or an hour.
Interesting.
Um,
Interesting.
it's an adjustment.
Yeah.
And so that was a gamble. We gambled on where our location was because neither of us had jobs when we moved here.
Yeah.
And we just were like, well, this seems like the best place. And
Mhm.
I think that's part of life is being willing
Yeah.
to know when you can gamble and when you can't, and then you just
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had some no's from interviews. Can you share with us like how many no's and what you did afterward to kind of just pick yourself up and just keep moving forward? Like, how do you move forward from that?
So I had 1.5 no's. Um, I interviewed with another large group, and they didn't have the exact position available, and then the dynamics changed a little bit. And I mean, Ginger, this is something you cover quite a bit, is like closing of birth centers and
Yeah.
closing of things. So, I also had interviewed at a birth center, which I don't really have. I did some clinicals at an out of hospital
Yeah.
site, but I'm very institutional bred.
Yeah.
I believe in the institution. I've worked there my whole life, and also I believe that I am called to make a change there. So
Mhm.
it's hard for me to really force myself into an out of hospital experience. And I think that interview or interviewer could tell that, like, I mean, she would do it if she was desperate and like
Yeah.
had to work, but
Well, it's about fit, right? And the
not
fact
fit.
that you're
Yeah.
talking about this fit concept, a lot of people don't think about it, Emily. They just need the job.
Hmm.
Well, yes, and I was, I was privileged in the fact that like I didn't
Yeah.
have to just take the first thing
Yeah.
available. We had
Yeah.
structured this where I had some time and freedom to really make a good decision. And partly because my previous job, there were things that were less than ideal in that
Yeah.
role. And I
Yeah.
really wanted to avoid those pitfalls that I had unknowingly or
Yeah.
just by virtue of there's no perfect job. So
No.
you're
No.
always going to have something that you wish for better. And so I really wanted to try to avoid some of those pitfalls I had done in
Yeah.
before.
Well, another topic, Denise, that she's hitting on right now is retention,
Hmm.
staying in the job. So when you think about the pitfalls and thinking forward, what are the things that you think will help with retention of our workforce?
So, I mean, compensation.
Yeah.
That is definitely
Fair.
and fairness, equity. I think making sure that those things are, I mean, we all contribute in our roles, right? So in some more than others, and I don't know how to pick the rules of like what is compensated and what is not, but certainly if you're all doing the same things and
Yeah.
um, then those things should all be compensated
Yeah.
fairly. If you're not allowing people to do certain aspects, in Texas, obviously we have some restrictive practice there. But here, we have full practice authority,
Right.
and I feel like even in the restrictions, I still had some restrictions in my practice that,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
that it didn't make sense to me, and it still don't necessarily make sense, but that I wanted to not have that restriction placed on me, where if I want to provide a certain type of care or something, then
Yeah.
I can do that. And um, that was important for me.
Do you have any words of advice to new graduates and returning? If you had one or two statements to say to people returning back to practice and to new graduates, what would that be?
Be aware of what you are doing. So I kept a list of things that I
Mm,
was doing. I was teaching the classes, I was reading journal articles, I kept my NRP up,
yep.
I kept my CPR active so that I could just be like, oh yeah, my CPR expires in like 6 months, so that it was obvious that like I had done that in a
Right.
timely manner. Being aware of those things so that you can say, oh, I haven't done NRP, but I took NRP and I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with the
Yeah.
course, and I don't
Yeah.
need to be refreshed on that when I hit the door because I'm already certified for like 6 months.
Right.
Um, be, being aware of the time that you're taking away and protecting that so that you're taking time away for a reason, whatever it is. If it's a sick family member, if it's a new baby, if it's a graduating senior, if it's I am so burnt out, I am not in a good headspace to do
Yeah.
this right now. You are being intentional about why you're taking time away, and then when you are ready to come back, coming back with gusto. I came back ready to go, ready to jump back in, and I've been waiting for this. And so telling people that, I think that
Yeah.
goes a long way. And plugging in. I attended ACNM
Yeah.
meetings. I took suturing classes with Nell Harp online. I mean,
Yeah.
just and
Yeah.
and to be in a Zoom with other midwives makes you remember
Yeah.
and be engaged. And I can say these are the things that I did. This is the continuing education I
Yeah.
did, and that kind of thing really helps you. So if you're a new graduate, highlight those things that you've done in
Yeah.
addition to your schooling that you can really say, hey, I went above and beyond in this area, and I'll
Yeah.
continue to do that in my role in these areas.
Emily, you have hit on the head our advice over and over and over. Not only
Yes.
do those things, but claim them on your resume. I'm
Mhm.
enrolled in a first assist course. It may not have ended yet, but you can say you're enrolled. Go do also, you know.
Well, and
Keep
knowing that you have things even on the horizon. That was one of the
yes.
things too, is I have this class coming up for this
Yes.
certification that
Yes.
I need.
Which
Yes.
shows your intent for ongoing education and learning versus the passivist model of nobody's just offered me a job yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Like nobody's hiring me.
Right.
Woe is me a little bit. I can't
Right.
find anything. Yeah, I think really being very positive and mindful about going forward and creating that list of things you've done and will
Right.
continue to do is
Right.
very, very appealing to employers.
Absolutely.
One last question, I think, anything that you did with this current job that you're currently working, one might say, like right now, it's your ideal job because you're doing it, right? Is there anything that you have advice about, like any awareness about that, or that made you know that this is the one that you wanted to apply for?
So I scheduled my annual physical with one of the midwives before I worked there.
Mm. Was that intentional, Emily?
Absolutely, for sure. I like looked them up on the ACNM website. Like
Oh my
who can
gosh.
I see? Um,
Oh my gosh.
so
What a
Foot in the door, so to
strategy.
speak. Foot in
yeah,
the
Honey,
door.
I'm telling you, I'm calculating. Like I want to know what this feels like as a patient. I want to, so I did that. And then at the end, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm a midwife looking for a job.
Oh my, I have never heard anybody do this, Denise.
I kind of remember that she did that, but now I
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what a strategy.
it is a strategy. It's like
Uh,
go find out if you want to work with these people, right?
right,
Like
exactly.
if
Like
they're
how,
taking good care of you, maybe you want to not only let them know you're looking, put that little plant that seed, but also these might be the people that I would align with and fit in with. So
yeah. And
that's
so,
amazing.
that was, see, again, it was very strategic, but it was also kind of accidental. I mean, I just,
No accident about that, Emily.
so,
Perfect.
I
Perfect.
did, I joined Facebook pages
Yep, yep,
and used searches of like birth and midwife and,
yep.
where I could kind of get a vibe check, that's
Yeah.
important.
You
That's
were,
great.
I would say, Denise, she's showing evidence of being just highly engaged in finding the right fit,
Yes.
which is something Denise and I pitch constantly. The book Wrong Fit, Right Fit. We recommend that book to both employers and people looking for jobs. But the fit comes across to the maybe not the recruiter, but definitely the people that you're going to work with. And that's what they want. They want somebody who's done all this homework, and it takes time to
Yeah,
do this.
and looking up the organization, knowing what their mission and vision are. I mean,
Yes,
those are things
yes.
that they're cheesy.
No, they're not.
But like at the end of the day, if the if the things they say out loud aren't in line with what your
Yeah,
beliefs are and what you want to see and be part of and do, then what goes on behind the curtain is not going to be in line with
yeah,
what you see and want to
yeah.
do.
Yes. Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you
And
so much for
again,
sharing
to
that.
y'all, I mean, to having, we say it every episode, midwifing the midwife, where I had people, and I realize I paid for your time, Denise. I paid for you to tell me and be my hype girl, right? It was an investment in my own future. I invested in myself. And so I couldn't get a Starbucks for a minute because I was making this investment in myself. But I I needed somebody to tell me that, like, you can do this, you can think about this, you can add this, you can do this, you can do this. And I needed to hear that a lot of times. And I feel like that was such a huge contributing factor in my success. And
Great.
I want to do that for other people. But the only
Yes,
way that you can do that for others and people can do it for you is you have to be willing to engage.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think, one of the challenges we have in our profession, which is very different than physicians, and I'm probably talking about my daughter-in-law too much as a physician, is, they use lawyers to help them do all this, right? Who do we use? We use other people who have jobs. We might use our classmates, um, but we don't
Our mentors.
necessarily our mentors. We're missing. We're getting a lot of the emotional stuff. We're not getting a lot of the business side of how to approach a job, and that's what we're trying to do. Is not take away the passion, but add the business skills to the conversation, because we're the ones who have to change our value. We're the only ones who are going to change our value.
Right.
Yes. Well said, Ginger. Okay, Ginger.
Yep.
What do you always end it with?
We end it with a round robin call to action. Who do you want to start, Denise?
You know what? I
She's
think you're
gonna
always the
she's
last
she's gonna
one,
change it up on
Ginger.
me, Emily.
I'm going to ask you, Ginger, to share your
Sure.
call to action.
What's my call to action? I I first of all, Emily, thank you for being with us. It's so good to just spend time with you and not just be reading about your resume and sort of knowing that we met. So thank you for coming. And I truly want to lift up one of the things you said that I say all the time, every week. always work on how to build your skills, which leads to building your resume, which leads to building your leverage. And you talked about so many things you did instead of just thinking that what you've done is enough. We are lifelong learners, and sometimes when there's a pause or we get out of school and we don't want to do that anymore, it's still critical to demonstrate your desire and your passion to do more. And I think your examples of that were just brilliant. So I would challenge our listeners to think about what could they add that might enhance their resume just a little bit. I don't know what it might be. It could be clinical, it could be a business course, it could be a negotiation course, man. Let's get some more midwives who know how to negotiate out there. But just keep doing things. Even when you're in this job you love, Emily, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next?
Yeah.
Emily, what's your call?
So my call is please, please plug in, particularly with your local affiliate.
Yes.
Meet those people that we have the opportunity to serve our greater good by plugging in at those local levels. It influences students. These new midwives that are coming up behind us are just phenomenal and full of so many great ideas. And I feel like it's really hard when there's 5 students and 2 experienced
Yeah.
midwives. We're almost like outnumbered. And I feel like it's just so important when they see other midwife leaders because we are
Yeah.
outdoing. I know it's hard to
Yep.
plug in because we're out doing 1,000 things, but that's my call to action is just plugging in and being visible.
Great.
And now it's my turn. Ginger, I think I like being going before you and before Emily because so many things of what you've both said are like, yes, just keep doing it. So, but what I really like, and again, thanks Emily for being here. I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
I'm
and
very grateful for you.
I, I think what I want to say that I took from what you said is like be calculating.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I do love your tenacity, but also like if you get a no, don't fall down and get crushed. That's just not the place that you were meant to be.
Yep.
Just keep looking for other avenues until you find the place that you're meant to be. And maybe it's a place that you're meant to be forever. And maybe it's just a short time that you're meant to be there. But don't take no as a failure. Take it as a way to look for different opportunities. And as both of you mentioned, while you're looking for those opportunities, find the side hustles of
Yeah.
midwifery that you can do. There's
Yeah.
so much out there to enhance what you're doing, not only like just for those niches, but just everything that you do creates creates a better clinical academic research midwife, whatever
And
you end
leverage.
up. And
And
that's
leverage.
right. Absolutely. So I guess that's my call.
Yeah. So Denise,
Yes, Ginger.
where I'm gonna ask you to share as we wrap this up before we tell Emily goodbye. We have plans for our next podcast, and as I mentioned in the very beginning of this one, that you're taking off in a few days, 5 or 6, to go to Haiti. Will you tell our listeners why you're going there and what our next podcast will be?
Why I'm going there? Well, I will tell you why I'm going there. I was invited to come back to a birth center that I helped start with a neonatologist, Stan Schaefer, Dr. Stan Schaefer, and Betsy Wickstrom, a perinatologist in 2003 or four, I think four.
Yeah, it's been a
Um,
long time.
they invited me back to do a week of professional development with the midwifery staff at Maison de Naissance, which is in close to Lake Hyde. It's in Torbec, Haiti. It's in the southwest area of Haiti. And I was invited to come back. I haven't been there since 2016, pre-COVID, and I don't know, so many earthquakes
Yeah.
and natural disasters that occur there. And I was also finishing my PhD. So it's been a long time. But Dr. Wickstrom said, please come back. I would do anything to come back. And I'm like, I hope I can. I got to check out my work schedule, and it worked out that my coworkers made it helped make it happen. But we're going to go do a week of professional development, and bring in a lot of supplies. Our
And
work at Maze.
you're gonna work on your French Creole, which you're fluent in.
Well, my French is good. My Creole I can pretty much understand, and I've learned some very specific phrases that are always they
Oh,
always shock them.
she's very good, Emily. She's
Wow. I, I'm amazed.
But
Things
we're
I didn't
going to
know.
support the staff there
yeah,
in the ways that we can, because our motto was always to sustain the work of the Haitian midwives,
yeah.
and not take over the work, but to sustain what they're doing. So that's what we're going to do. So our next guest that will be on with us will be Dr. Wickstrom. Betsy it will come on and we'll share about our work in Haiti and just a lot of the collaborative models that can work internationally and nationally
Yeah.
between midwives and physicians, and how that can happen on so many levels. So we're very much looking forward to seeing Dr. Wickstrom.
Yeah. So Emily, again, our deep gratitude for you coming on and sharing your story with the listeners.
Thank
Uh,
you.
we're
Well,
so
thank you guys. I am so honored to have been here. Thank you. This was a really neat opportunity. And thank you for all of the work that you do in the past and currently that you do for midwives. And it's making a difference every day.
thanks, Emily. Denise, good to see you again.
We'll see you again, Ginger, when I get back from Haiti.
Happy trails in Haiti. And bye, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.